Welcome back to God Nod. My name is Kasey, and today I want to talk about the cross. So the last couple of months, I have been praying with this theme of the cross, particularly Christ's passion, Christ dying for us, Christ suffering so much for us, our mother suffering for us, just like the concept of suffering. Because you and I, we both go through suffering. It is part of being human. After the fall, the result of sin, the effect of sin, we suffer. That's part of our human experience. And so we all suffer in some way, shape, or form, whether it is extreme or small, we all suffer. And so I was praying about this concept of suffering and Christ suffering, and really through adoration and just praying with the Lord about the concept of suffering. The Lord, through this, in the stillness and the silence of adoration, I just kind of heard the Lord stir something in my heart that just kind of came to me. And I felt called to just share the same question with you because it has got me to pray with this for months now. And I probably will for the rest of my life. But I want to pose a couple questions to you, what I believe the Lord has asked me. And so first question is, if the Lord, let's just say hypothetically, the Lord came down in a vision to you and he said, all right, say your name, I'll just say Kasey. All right, Kasey, I am giving you the option of the first option being to suffer less, and the second option is to suffer more, okay? For you visual learners, to suffer less and to suffer more, okay? So you have two options, two crosses to choose from in your life, okay? So whenever I say cross, it's like when Christ says, take up your cross daily and follow me in Luke 9:23, like whenever he says the word cross, that basically means just like your sufferings in your life, your trials, the hardships, the things that you are suffering through. So if the Lord came hypothetically to you in a vision and said, all right, Kasey, whomever is watching this video, state your name and say, Jesus came to you and said, all right, Kasey, here are your two options, suffering this much in life or suffering this much in life. Which one do you want? Okay, obviously, unless you guys are already saints, or maybe you have some like challenge kind of personality and you're like, I want the big cross. I don't go there. I'm weak and I'm like, yep, I want this one. I want to suffer as little as possible, Lord, okay? No more suffering. So if I can choose this cross, Lord, okay. So that's fine. You choose the little cross. Now, second question. What if I told you that Jesus came back a second time and said, okay, Kasey, you have chosen the little cross, and this one I will give you. However, what if, hypothetically, Jesus came and said, you have two options. Option one, suffer more, but with me, or suffer less without me. Which one would you choose? Okay, for those who don't know what it's like to suffer with Christ, this might be a hard question. So for those who are maybe watching this who are like, I don't know what you're talking about, maybe this video isn't for you, but maybe for those who do know what suffering with Christ means, or if you've experienced that, maybe this video is for you. I have been praying with this because I believe that as a Christian, as a Catholic Christian, to believe in redemptive suffering of whatever we are suffering with, whether it be physical or spiritual or emotional or mental or whatever it may be, I believe that I can take that suffering, I can offer it to Christ and unite it with Christ on the cross, and he can bring about graces from my suffering and uniting it to his. That's called redemptive suffering. And I believe that as a Catholic Christian, that the more I say yes to the Lord, the more I will suffer. Now, why do I believe that? I believe that through experience. I believe that through reading church writings and saints' lives and coming to understand what true love is. I mean, Jesus, who is love himself, did this for us. Ultimate love, ultimate suffering. And so the more and more I come to know the Lord, the more I realize that I'm not made for this world. I am made for heaven. I have a spot in heaven waiting for me, God willing, if I endure to the end and choose Christ every single day of my life. And so I am convicted more and more that I am not made for this world, that this life has nothing to do with seeking my own fulfillment here in this life, my own pleasures or my own joys in this life. It has all to do with him, and that's it. And he is the only one that can fulfill me. He is the only one who can satisfy any piece of my heart, because everything in this life fades. And so just like Saint Therese says, she's on my wall here. Saint Therese, just as she says, the world is thy ship and not thy home. And the more I come to know the Lord, the more I realize that she is spot on. This world, this earthly life is just the ship on the journey to heaven. I'm not made for this life. And if I'm going to suffer anyway, if suffering is part of the human experience anyway, why would I not suffer with Christ? And if the Lord is inviting me to embrace more crosses in my life, to win more souls for Christ, why would I say no? Because the more suffering I accept, the more suffering that I embrace, not seeking suffering for its own end, but just the daily sufferings that come upon me that I have no control over, the more I just accept and surrender and unite to Jesus on the cross, the more love and the more grace I can receive through coming in greater union with him on the cross and letting him resurrect every single cross in my life, instead of me trying to do everything, instead of me running from the cross and actually end up causing myself more suffering from trying to do that. And because this world is not our home, we are building up treasure in heaven. That's plain and simple. There's meaning to our suffering, and we will be rewarded in heaven for every ounce of suffering that we unite with the Lord, and it will all be worth it. You know how St. Paul says, heaven is, we cannot understand what heaven is in this earth. It is no eye has seen, no ear has heard, what is to be revealed in heaven. And so hold on to that hope. If you're suffering, if you're going through a hard time right now, if you're being given a cross right now, please know that the Lord is with you in the suffering. He has promised us in Matthew 28 that he will never leave us, and that he is with you so intimately right now, and that you can save so many souls through your suffering right now, and that you can come to such a great intimacy with the Lord, something that you will, nothing is compared to intimacy with Christ. That is the whole purpose of our life, is to grow in intimacy with him. So just please know that this world is not our home, and that we are not made for this world, but we are made for the next life, and that every ounce of suffering in this world is worth it compared to what we will be given, and what seeing God face to face, it will all be worth it. I forget what scripture it is, but it talks about how just as a woman in labor, how she goes through such suffering and labor, the moment she sees her child's face, she forgets all the suffering that she endured for that child because of the gift that her child is. And so, and I think that's just a great illustration of that is what heaven will be like one day when we come face to face with God. We will wish, St. Faustina even talks about it in her diary. She talks about how you know, she was a mystic. She had lots of visions from the Lord and stuff, and she was able to see heaven and hell, and you know, a lot of these crazy experiences that she had. But she has this quote somewhere that she talks about how she would be willing to suffer anything on earth to receive another degree of glory in heaven. Because in heaven, it's not just like everyone experiences God the same. No, we all experience heaven differently in heaven, because whoever enters heaven, God willing, me and you are both there through God's grace. But we know God differently. And in heaven, we're going to be face to face with God. But your charity for God and my charity for God is going to be different when we die. And that is the goal of our entire life, is to grow in as much charity for God as we possibly can, so that by the time we die, we are so in love with the Lord that we receive a high degree of glory in heaven, so that we get to know and we experience Him in a way that no one else will in heaven, because we have a personal God. And your love for God is different than my love for God, because we are different people and because we have different experiences. So we have different amounts of grace. And so I guess what I'm just trying to say is that every suffering that you're going through right now, unite it to the Lord, and it will be so worth it. And God willing, me and you will both be face to face with God one day in heaven and get to see the fruit of uniting our suffering to the Lord. Maybe some stranger will come up to you and say, "Thank you for saving my life, because you offering up your suffering for me that random day saved my soul, and I came to know the Lord." That is how beautiful our Lord is, and how amazing the communion of saints is, as we are in one big family, one big church, working together to know and love and serve the Lord. So I have just really been praying about these two options, really. If I was given the option, which you are actually, you are going to suffer no matter what in this life. You might be suffering right now. Maybe watching this video is a kind of suffering for you. We all are going to suffer in this life. And we have the choice to either bring Christ into our suffering, or to leave Him out of it and try to do it alone, where our suffering means nothing. Or we bring Christ into it, and He can actually redeem that suffering and save souls through that suffering. And literally the littlest of sufferings. You know, I love the story of Saint Mother Teresa. There was a time where whenever she started kind of getting famous, when she was still alive, she started getting a lot of people following her and taking pictures of her. Anytime she get off the airplane, you know, things like that, there'd be crowds of people storming to her, taking photos of her, and she hated it. She hated the flash, she hated the attention, she hated all of it. And so that for her was a kind of suffering. She hated the flashes, the attention, all of the people in her face. And so that was a suffering for her. And she would pray, "Lord, for every flash that I see, please save a soul in purgatory." Now that is some great faith, and that is faith in a big and merciful God. She took that little suffering that she was experiencing in her life and was like, "Lord, please save a soul with every flash I see. Lord, I offer this to you. I offer that flash to you. I offer this flash to you. I offer that person to you. I offer that flash to you." And so every single moment in our lives, whether it's someone taking a picture of us because we don't like a flash, whether we are experiencing the death of a loved one, a breakup, the stress or anxiety of school, maybe a child just misbehaving and not knowing how to handle him or her, whatever that suffering may be, maybe it's a suffering in your marriage or with your parents, whatever that suffering may be, a broken arm, maybe you stubbed your toe, whatever it might be, you can take that suffering, you can unite it to Christ on the cross, and you can let Him save souls through that suffering, because it is through His suffering that He saved our souls. You're going to suffer no matter what. Do you want to suffer with Him or without Him? Second question. If the Lord came to you and asked, would you suffer more for me so that more souls would be saved, so that I can love you more? Would you accept that suffering? What would you say? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And I know that suffering is hard and crosses are hard, but I also know that it's in from my experience of suffering, it is in the deepest parts of suffering in my life that I have felt the greatest intimacy with the Lord. And it is because I felt like he was so close to me. Mother Teresa would say that anytime you're suffering, it is a kiss from the Lord on the cross to you, because he is inviting you into that, and so close to you on the cross that he loves you so much that he's inviting you into that union and that intimacy with him. And when you read some of the saints' lives, especially Saint Therese of Lisieux, she's my patron saint, and so I really ask for her intercession a lot. And she would always talk about joy and suffering. And I remember being, 8th grade, high school, reading this, and I was so perplexed, like seeing the two words joy and suffering together. I was like, this does not make sense. How did she do it? And for the longest time, I did not understand. I would just read it over and over and over, and I try to come to comprehend it. And I'm like, you can try to convince yourself that you can find joy in this suffering, but there's been very few moments in my life where I've actually experienced that joy in suffering. And it only has happened when I truly unite my big sufferings with Christ on the cross so much so that I actually know the Lord is with me so close and so intimate, that I would trade nothing for that intimacy with him, that I would suffer so much more for greater intimacy with him, because it's in that great intimacy with him that I feel the most loved, and it just makes me want to give of myself more for him, to have greater relationship with him. And so, yeah. Thank you for listening to me and letting me share that part of my heart and part of the last couple months of what I've been praying with the cross. And please know that it is suffering. From this video, I do not want you to run to suffering, but I want you to accept or pray with accepting the crosses of our daily life. We do not have to look for suffering. Suffering comes to us in all shapes and forms very easily. And so what the Lord calls us to is to take up that cross. Whatever crosses the Lord allows for us to have in our lives, we take it and we let him carry it with us and for us. And that's it. It's as simple as that. And it is through that embrace of that cross that we get to experience great intimacy with our Lord and great love with him. So please know, if you have prayer intentions, please drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and pray with you and be with you. And brothers and sisters, there is great joy in suffering if we unite it with the Lord and truly choose to let Christ carry our crosses for us. Anyway, I pray for you. I'm praying with you and for you. And I hope God blesses you abundantly.